Hello and welcome to another tutorial here at CapEx Productions. My name is David. Today we're going to be looking at the fingerstyle arrangement of Sanctuary by Joji. If you'd like to take a listen to the song, you can find the video of me playing it on this channel just to give you a bit of an idea of what it sounds like before we jump into the tutorial. Feel free to support me on Patreon. It's only $2 and you get access to all of the tabs that I put up. And if you pay $5, you get access to all of the audio files. And I also have Slow Dancing in the Dark by Joji, so if you like this, then you might like that too. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to know is that you're going to play this with your capo on the first fret. It's completely fine if you don't want to play it with a capo, but if you want to play in the original key, capo on the first fret. One thing I should say is this piece is a little tricky. I probably rank it around intermediate to advanced level, so if you are a beginner, I'm not saying don't try it, give it a go. But I really want to encourage you to check out my introductory module on Patreon. I'm going to have that up in the next week or so. And it's going to pretty much give you a complete foundation of all the things that you need to know when it comes to playing fingerstyle guitar, how to read notation, how to read rhythms, and all the important stuff that's going to get you playing with some really cool songs. So yeah, take a look in about a week or so and it'll be up. So the first part from bars 1 to 4. Great. Okay, so a lot of this has to do with right hand technique because the left hand's not doing a whole lot. But to start off, you'll have your third finger on the third fret of the sixth string, and then your right hand's going to play that with your thumb, and then the open strings, you're going to try and make sure that you don't use the same finger for the open strings. So for example, I use my thumb, index, ring, and that's normally good technique. Is if you just use your index finger, it's kind of a little bit lazy. So it's a good idea to try and make sure that you're using different fingers when you're playing across strings. It's actually a bit easier if you see the view sort of at an angle of my right hand. Etc. Yeah, making sure that you're kind of playing across the strings with all your fingers. It's difficult, I know, it's tough and it's annoying, but you know what, in the long run, it's totally worth it because you play well and you get a really good tone that way, I think. One thing that I would like to mention is from bar 4, here you want to have this gradual crescendo. So the melody is kind of not doing anything, so I needed to include something here. So you'll start off with these two notes, the third fret and the second fret, and then you're going to kind of gradually get louder and then stop on the last one. That's what we call in classical music a crescendo. So yeah, try and take that into account when you're playing that. As far as the other bars, they're not too crazy. Yeah, from the open of the second bar, let's go from there. And then you have your crescendo. Stop. Yeah. So see if you can practice that a couple of times and read that off. The second part is very similar, except we have a bit of a percussive element here. So we're going to go from bar 5. Now, I really suck at playing and hitting at the same time, so I've kind of used this technique quite a lot, is that if I'm going to do a hit, I try and make sure that I'm hammering on with my left hand, like this. You'll notice my right hand's not actually physically playing the 2, I'm just hammering on from the open. Yeah, so that part is a really good thing to work on, and you can work on this technique in isolation in a bar like this. Open, open, hammer on. And then here we have second fret and the open string. So second fret of the third string, open of the second string, and then you're going to hammer on to the fourth fret like this. And you get this really interesting sounding effect. I was trying to kind of mimic the voice there, and then same thing that we had before. Yeah, and that's the verse. Okay, now the pre-chorus. There's a couple of ways of playing this. The way I play is actually kind of stupid, but I think it works. This is kind of a slow tempo. I'm not playing at speed. something like that. It's much easier to do this faster. I'll get to that in a sec. Okay, so from bar 9 here, second finger and pinky finger on the 2nd and 4th frets of the 3rd and 4th strings. Then your first finger is going to play on the 2nd fret, and then your 3rd finger is going to play on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. Now, a lot of people would be like, well, why don't you just bar that? Yeah, you can bar it like this. But the problem with barring is that then you let go of all the strings, and then you don't have any of the natural resonance of those notes because they just disappear as soon as you lift the bar up. As opposed to this, where you have these notes ringing over really nicely. Ultimately, it's just my pinky finger, really. But whatever, it sounds nice. In my opinion, it sounds nicer this way. That's pretty straightforward. And then here we have this kind of these semiquavers that keep things moving. All right, so here, first fret of the 6th string, open, open, and then here thumb, middle, here thumb, index, middle, making sure that you're playing all those together. Sliding up from the 1st fret to your 3rd fret with your first finger still. And then hits, and then here you're going to slide up pretty quickly on your 3rd finger from the 5th fret to the 7th fret, and you get this really sweet sound. Good thing to practice. Hit. Then, this is the challenge. I included this in Fingerstyle arrangement of Thunderclouds by Arlisti. I thought I'd include it here too. Yeah, I should have something there to indicate the click, but yeah. So what you want to do is kind of wind up with your ring finger, your middle finger, and your ring finger, your middle finger, and your index finger, like this, with your ring finger in front, I don't know if you can see there, of your middle, and your middle in front of your index, and then you're going to kind of release them one at a time, and then work on speeding it up. And then a tap after it. And it's quite a cool little technique. If you're at school, if you're at work and you're trying to figure this out, just work on it with your right hand on like a desk. And then work on speeding it up. There's other ways of doing it. You can kind of do, yeah, that also works. So yeah, that's another way of doing it. All right, let's jump to the chorus. Thing repeats. Okay, so we kind of have this big stretch, but it's not too bad because it's in a high position. Thumb, strum, 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 strum. 10 with your pinky finger on the 2nd string. And then you're gonna have this major 7th shape. Now, normally I would just say you play that and then you go to your 2nd finger over here and then to your pinky. But again, the idea of what we were talking about earlier, having the resonance of the rest of the chord ringing over, we're gonna do something a little sneaky. Slide up our 1st finger underneath our 2nd finger on the what fret's that? 8th fret, I think. Yeah. 8th fret, and then 10th fret with your pinky, and then you can kind of let go of everything here. Yeah. So all in all, those 2 bars. Yeah, this is a really strange way of playing this, but it's the best way in terms of keeping all of the notes down and making sure that there aren't any dead spots. Because the rule is we want to try and keep the melody, which is we want to keep all of those notes ringing. We don't want any dead spots. As soon as there's a dead spot in the melody, then the listener's going to be drawn to the accompaniment, which is completely, in a song like this, completely irrelevant. The accompaniment just makes the melody sound more beautiful. So if you find yourself at any point not getting this to come through, that's a problem. That's why I try to play this part over here, this bass line part, really softly. and then this loud again. And then slide here. Try and keep all of these notes ringing over each other. And then do that slide, open strings. I love this part so much. It's such a really striking chord change. And then you'll jump back in, repeat the whole chorus again as is. And that's pretty much the main parts of the song. We're gonna go through the second verse real quick. It's very similar to the first verse. Alright, so that first part, you want to try and keep your third finger down the whole time. Again, having this really nice resonance of all these strings ringing over each other. And then your first and your second finger are going to kind of do, fingers are going to do the work on your left hand. Yeah, do you get the idea? And then we go again into our crescendo. And then we have the same pattern, but this time we have these thirds, so you're gonna have to lift up your third finger, bar 21. 2, 3, 4, and then the crescendo. Yeah, so that part is also really important, but this time we're gonna make sure that we're not too worried about our third finger. Except for when we get to there, then you're going to put your third finger down and let all those notes ring over each other. And then, cool, pre-chorus from bar 25. This part is very similar to what we had before, except the rhythm changes. Da, 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 and then. Yeah, so that thing happens again. So we spoke about that. Chorus again. Now, let's go into the kind of bridge parts. So at the end of the chorus, it changes slightly. And then here, try and see if you can reach for the 5 with your pinky. Slide, and then. Holding this whole thing down as a shape, and then your right hand. This is the pattern, middle, index, thumb, index, middle. Or you can try with your ring finger. Both of those are fine. And that pattern repeats. Here, strum. And then we're gonna do a similar slide thing that we did earlier in the pre-chorus. Kind of like a late hammer-on pull-off. 8, 7, 8, 7, 5. Yeah, so that's pretty. Just really about getting the timing right for that part. It's a bit tricky, but yeah, worth practicing. Great, and now for the end. Okay, this is the tough part. This is a right-hand harmonics. So if you can get this right, that's impressive. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to play the bass note with your thumb. Now we're going to play the open second string, but we're going to use an artificial harmonic with our right hand, and we're going to play the 13th fret, technically speaking. This is actually the 12th fret above. So if you think about this as our first fret, this is going to be the 13th fret. So if you have 2 dots on the 12th fret, it'll be up 1. So the idea is that when you play the note, the next note, you have to be exactly 12 frets above where it is over here. So if you're playing the 2nd fret, remember actually the 3rd fret because we're playing capo, you have to be 12 frets higher, which is the 15th fret with your right hand. And with your right hand, you're going to be taking your index finger, touching right over the fret, not in the fret, right on top of the fret. And then with your ring finger, you're going to strike the note while your first finger is just touching it. That's the idea with the artificial harmonic. There's a couple of ways of playing it. I've seen some interesting ways, but this is one of the ways that works best. This is what we do a lot in classical music. So we're gonna thumb bass notes, and then open. Now here, this is the challenge. If you can play with your thumb and your index and your ring all playing together. And then 2, 3, 4, and then it repeats at a much slower tempo. So I put 60 beats per minute. You can take it as slow as you want. It's like kind of a slow, chilled out ending. But this technique is pretty advanced, and getting used to, especially the second part where you're playing the C, the C and the open B at the same time. That's a challenge. So really work on this technique. Work on just doing simple melodies like open, first fret, third fret, first fret, open, and then try and adding a bass note, etc. You get the idea. And that's pretty much the entire song. I'm sorry, I took quite a lot of time to go through everything, but I hope you guys appreciate it. And again, if you want the music, you can get it on Patreon. Awesome.